Welcome back, everybody. It's Passage to Profit, and we're just having a lot of fun in between segments here. And Shondrella Avery, our guest this evening, mentioned that I said the bees instead of The Secret Life of Bees, which was the production that she starred in. So I stand corrected on that. Like I was thinking of Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds and the Bees, but I was very confused. So welcome to the show, Shondrella. It's really great to have you. And you were at Second City, which is in Chicago, which is where I'm from. I went to a lot of Second City shows. It was fantastic entertainment. This would have been back in like the 80s. And so you're a comedian, you're an actress, you're a producer, and humor is, so important in everyday life. And, one of the questions is, do you have it? Or are you born with humor, or is it a skill that people can learn? And how has your humor developed over the years?
Well, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here with all of you and to all of your viewers. I appreciate you listening. I want to say I believe that for me personally, I know God has given me the gift of humor and storytelling. I do come from very funny parents. So oftentimes when you look at your life, we're inherited by things from our families, hair, feet, toes, eyes, whatever. And so I do believe that our parents do deposit some of their gifts and talents within us. And so I do have very funny parents, but ultimately, I arrived at this at a very young age. I was a speech contest winner in my elementary school. So public speaking, and I'm 6 feet. So I had a gift of, yes, I know you're looking like 6 feet. She's a giant. Yes. I am. I'm above the average height for a woman. But that also allowed me, and I come from a large family. So for me, funny storytelling was very easy for me. When you're in a large family, you just have to find a way to make sure that everyone shuts up and does their homework. And then on top of that, you can cultivate. I'll say for many people, oftentimes people work at it. There's a little thing in them, and then they begin to study different storytellers or other performers, and then they learn cadences from different people. I just felt that I was enough for what I did and cultivated that within the gift that was put into me. And then I fostered it by going to school just in general. I'm a theater major ultimately. So I wanted to understand the fundamentals and learn the history of theater and really become a thespian as opposed to just, someone that feels like they can act. And so there is a history to that. And I tell people all the time when people are like, oh my God, I just really think I want to do this. And I'm like, well, there's culture in this. There's, it's a spirit of obedience and discipleship that requires you to actually, harness your talent and grow it. So for me, the natural gift of funny was there. And on top of that, the history of storytelling, I studied it in school, and I really pride myself on knowing that I've chosen certain parts. One, God orders my steps. So for me, he'll tell me something, but because I'm intellectual about my material, my property, I really work very hard at making sure that each one of the voices that come from within me is actually done with the same amount of respect as I would like to give for myself as Shondrella Avery. So it's all those myriads together. Some people might say, hey, listen, I started studying. I studied Chris Rock, or I studied Richard Pryor, and that's great. Eddie Murphy, and those are wonderful people to follow and admire. But I think oftentimes if you sit back and rest in your own gifts, you'll find that whatever God put in you.
Well, I am glad to hear that, because I am told that I have a very strange sense of humor, but that I'm funny and I don't even know it. But but I want to ask you about.
Amen to that.
I want to ask you about the show that you had on HBO, Ain't I Enough? So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, while in school, two executive producers, Yvette Lee Bowser and Unetta T. Boone, they actually wrote, they wanted to really test me, I believe. They wanted to see if after coming out of school, or as I was going into graduate school, was I sophisticated enough to actually do a one-woman show? I come from a large family. I'm the eldest of 10 natural children, and my parents have fostered more than 200 plus children over 35, 36 26 years. And so I was telling them my life, look, it's a busy household. Mama's busy. And how can you make that into something that really tells the story of your fullness of your life? How do I have all these voices? Why am I empathetic and compassionate? Why do I want to have teamwork? Why do I come together and do that so well? And I just told them, look, I mean, I'm from a big family. I'm from South Central, and you have to harness that environment and say it's a community. It says it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it does. And in some instances, the village is the whole family themselves. So they wrote a one-woman show called Ain't I Enough? Because I am the eldest and I tell the story of what it's like being in a family of 200 children. And I take you through all the various characters. I did 10 characters, voices from my parents, my grandparents, my siblings, brothers and sisters, and then myself, and finding my own voice in a large family and us really still. So just 2 days ago on Sunday, the youngest child, my youngest brother, Adonis, he graduated from college and he's number 10. And so we all have done very well. You can come from the inner city, from what would be a disenfranchised community. And if your parents make smart choices, they will make sure that their children are in proper places. And listen, you can go all the way back to when, Black people were redlined in the community, in South Central and disenfranchised communities. But my father was an engineer. My mother was in education, and they both came together and they made the best choices. And so our lives, to see my brother graduate, and we're called the bookend siblings. It's just a gift. It's something that only God can touch your family, and you have to, give proper, props where it's due. So I love the play. I did it. It ran on HBO and in their workspace as well. And that really promoted my career to going to different heights. So I tell all storytellers, do a one-woman show or a one-man show. Really get on stage, because let me tell you something, there's no more intimate space of when you know how gifted you are, when you stand on that stage and you're all by yourself and you have to tell that story and have a good memory and an absorption level to actually put forth that. Challenge yourself. Artists have to push themselves. I tell them all the time, just don't be lazy and willy-nilly around. Do your homework, lean in, take the hard opportunities, right? The quiet, still voices of some stories are oftentimes better than the ones that talk a lot. So learn the craft. And being a one-woman show and a thespian, that has really afforded me a great wealth of opportunity in this business overall,
That's great. So 200 kids. I bet family photos took forever, right?
Yeah, listen, they're all grown. I mean, I still have two siblings that are 18 and 19, and they are I say I'm one of 12, but my parents have taken them in and given them their name. And, I believe my parents educated us on the gift of philanthropy. We've been a philanthropic family because when you're in the foster system, no one can pay you enough, no one can give you enough, where your children actually come out of that experience clothed and in their right minds from all of the things that some of those children bring to your home, that type of energy when they come from really heartfelt situations. So I couldn't have known it as a child, but I'm so thankful for my parents making that sacrifice. That has expounded upon my, as a storyteller, my love of compassion and empathy and the give back. And then it helps to really foster the characters that I've portrayed. And then as a producer, how many people I can hire and the things that I've done, all of that lends itself from my childhood. And I'm very thankful for that.
Well, so I love the storytelling piece. It's so important, especially it seems like in today's society. And, this is a show about entrepreneurism, which you obviously have created your own thing. So you are an entrepreneur. But entrepreneurs have to tell their story of their company, their story of their passion, their story of how they came to it. And investors like to hear those stories. And the more enthusiastic they are. So a lot of investors that we've talked to will say, well, I'm kind of looking at the technology, but I'm really looking at the person.
Right. And they oftentimes they invest in the team, and you don't know who the team is unless there's a story and a context that goes with the project. So yeah, that was very,
Right.
very
I
well.
mean, we're all a story though, aren't we? I mean, you both are a story yourselves. Look
We're lots
You're not
of
the
stories.
first person who said that, but
we all are a story. Everyone has the story. Yeah. So any of your story, even within the food, I mean, Amy's going to tell you about food is a story. You know, you can cultivate any story. I mean, Trevor told the story of his father. It's a story, you know, and that story lends to the purpose of who he is, and then offering that for education for your viewers, you know. So I think ultimately, you know, this whole world is about, we can step outside and look at the trees and they're going to tell you their own story. This tree is doing something from this plant and this plant. And then we have to come together and actually make a beautiful entity where people can see. And that's really what all of it is. And I think if most of your inventors get back on your, you know, independent entrepreneurship, it's really about how wonderful you feel you are within that space and loving what you do, no matter what. Because as an actor, it's called show business. It's not just about the show. It's about the business. And I am a businesswoman. So that makes me an entrepreneur. It's perception. It's how you see it. Because most times we get so caught up in the show. And like you said earlier, you know, many people are not getting the bucks like, you know, we get as a storyteller. But, you know, not everyone, and some people are too, working 17, 18, 20 hours a day, you know, and they should get, you know, the bucks like we get, you know. And I'm not saying that they're not, but there's bigger than us. What I may get, then the studio is getting on top of that, right? Because then they own the property, the intellectual property. Yeah. So I have decided in my business as a producer to make sure that I have ownership, because I'm not just out here just giving you my good looks.
Well, I got to tell you, Shondrella, I think I would much rather watch and listen to someone like you than most of the scientists.
There's a reason why you get paid.
But yeah.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah,
and this is kind of goes back to the craft, because I'm kind of like a nerd when it comes to process and all this stuff. Going out there night after night, doing the same Broadway show, what's that like? I mean, does it ever get stale? Do you constantly work on improving it? How does that piece work?
That's a great question. I'll answer first. No, it never gets stale, because every night there's a new person coming to hear this person's story. And if the story is about me, then you're coming to hear the perspective of my experience. If I'm pretending in another imaginary world, then I'm excited as a storyteller to convey that person's narrative to the audience. And you're coming there for an experience. So for me, no, it never gets tired. It never, I mean, I was in Napoleon Dynamite, as you mentioned. I just did, while here I'm on holiday, quasi holiday, I just signed, 200 autographs. It never gets tired. People make little memes with me, and they make little, kitten balls and with characters of myself and Aaron. It never gets old, because again, you've breathed life into these characters. And so each night we go out, it's like, you all come here. Is it ever stale? No, because you're going to meet 3 or 4 different new people. Absolutely. And they're going to enlighten you about life and their experiences. And so in the business of entrepreneurship, when you step out, you knock on that door or you make that phone call, that might be that one that take you to that next level and elevate you again and again. So no, if you're doing what you love and you're excited about it, even if it adds no profit to you, because before I was a financially successful, storyteller and producer, I made no money, but I knew I was good. And so, and even then you still keep going higher and higher, and God will order your steps. You just have to step into it, lean deeply into it, and just salivate in all the hardships that you're going to experience, all the rejections, all the no's. It's okay, because that says that you're getting closer to your bigger victory. So you hang in there. So yeah, listen, it never gets stale for me. Every day I step on stage like it's a new night with new people, new claps and applause, and new experiences. So there's going to be a little, no matter how much I've absorbed the narrative, someone's going to do a moment, they're going to look a certain way that's going to change my energy in that conversation. So I don't beat it up. I never rehearse before. When you're doing stage, it's different. They need you to rehearse a lot. But I'm also a storyteller in front of the camera on screen. And I've come up in a society where as an actor in college, we never rehearsed, because then that makes it so like drawn out. Now we know the beats. No, we're having a real conversation in real time. So let's have it. And whatever comes of that, that's what it will be. So I always get excited about that, because I don't know what Amy's going to bring today or what Trevor's going to bring. But if I show up ready to play, then we play. And when you go outside and play, you don't know what kid is going to say, hey, you tripped me, or, oh, I like that. You never know. Come ready to play. And every entrepreneur should take that childlike energy and enthusiasm with them when they go out, because this might be the day you're going to meet your best friend and your life is going to change.
That is excellent advice. I got to ask you though something, Shondrella. If your dad is an engineer, which you said he is, what did he think about you going into comedy and acting? Like, because my mother, honestly, she was appalled that I wanted to be a chemist. She was like, why would you do that? So what did your engineer father think about you going the other way?
He didn't like it. Trust me. It was a hard fought battle. He was not pleased. He really felt that, how should I say this politely, that storytellers in his era were not respectable women. That's what he felt. And I am the eldest, and I set the pace from all of my siblings. And he felt that I should become a lawyer. He felt that my height would allow me the authority that would help me. I had great conversation, diction, grammar. They had put all of this investment in me in my younger life, that they felt that was what my father felt, that was the best direction. But, you know, once I got to high school, I went to performing arts high school, and my mother really just said, you know, you got to just let this girl do what she's going to do, because I'm going to do it anyway. It's just a matter of how you do it. So we had an agreement. My father said, all right, if you want to do this whole play pretend story thing, then what you need to do is I need you to get a real job with a business card. And that was the agreement we made when I came out of high school going into college. And so I worked for Hilton Hotels Corporation as a senior supplier executive. I had a staff of 10 at 22. And I had a corner office in Beverly Hills, and I had a business card. And my father paraded up and down the hallways, and he saw my team. I don't know how God allowed me to have all of that. Maybe it was the height or my conversation or just my ability to make sure that I can do what I wanted to do, but to actually please my father. And he had that business card and my notepad with my name. I had a corporate card, and I traveled all over brokering lighting packages, negotiations for Hilton's worldwide. And you know what I say? I thank God my father did that to me. I really do, because I wouldn't be the type of producer that I am today. Being able to manage people, not just because I come from a large family, but actually knowing the structure of business, coming to work, showing up, dressing up for work. You know, he worked for Northrop for many, many years, and he was, you know, a lead man. He was an engineer, so he dressed up to work. So those things I didn't really think were going to make a difference. It pleased him, but it actually blessed me. And so I was able to tell the stories, and then he was able to brag about me at the barbershop. So, hey.
Wow. I could talk to you for hours, but unfortunately we don't have that much time right now. We're going to have to go to break, but I hope you can stick around and advise our entrepreneurs and interact with them as they give their stories.
Absolutely. I'd be pleased. I can't wait to hear everyone's story, especially Amy with her secrets. I want to know about this.
So you are listening to Passage to Profit, the Inventor Show with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart, our special guest, Shondrella Avery, and we will be right back.
Thank you.
Welcome back.